Hello, everybody. Give me just a minute. And in the meantime, take a look at my fire pit because it's about to start burning. All right, I'm back, everybody. I'm about to light the fire. All right. Hope y'all can see the color. I don't know if you can or not yet. But from my vantage point, it's blue and green. It's a magic fire. And before long, it will begin to shoot up through the top. How y'all like my fire? Well, hello, Joshua. How you doing? Glad you're here. Today's the day to remember those that have given the ultimate price. And with this fire, I am doing my best to remember all of those that we have lost. Someone made a statement today. Here it comes out the top. Someone made a statement today that today we need to remember all vets, and that's not true. We have Veterans Day for that. Today's Memorial Day, a day in which we remember those that have fought and have given the ultimate price for our freedom, if you want to call it that. So I hope y'all enjoy my beautiful fire. Uh, I don't know how long it's going to burn, but I'll be sitting out here in the beautiful garden until it is passed away. I'm not looking at the chat, people. Joshua, yes, ma'am. My brother is one of them. Well, may his soul rest in peace. Knowing that he did not die in vain, we're still a free country, even though it doesn't seem like it, but we are. I take my dad. I didn't lose him in war. I lost my dad, Jesse, to natural causes. Same with my brother, both brothers who fought, yes, but they didn't die in battle. I remember the Indian wars and those that died in battle. I remember those of the American Revolution that died in battle. I'm here to remember those that fought in the Spanish American War, those who fought and gave so much at the Alamo. I remember the brave young men that went out and went to Germany and to Japan during World Wars I and II. The valiant young men and women that fought in Korea, in Vietnam, Desert Storm, Iraqi freedom, the Afghan war, and the war of the streets. The cops, the law enforcement officers who have given their life for others. The first responders who suffer from continuous PTSD because they can't unsee what they saw. I remember those today with reverence, love, and understanding. To say that it's over for our country, I don't think so. I still believe that there's a lot left to this old flag, and to the people that proudly wave it on the overpasses and on the streets, those that hang them from their flagpoles in their yard, remembering that life is thus fleeting like this fire. It will not burn bright forever, but for a time it will burn. For a time it will be bright, and then for a time it will be nothing but a flickering glow that eventually dies out and makes room for the next fire. All right. You might hear me cough, okay? It's my time. You with me in it and the fire, baby. So I can see what I'm reading here. Hello, Joshua. You know, I miss you. Just so you know, I miss you. How did you like your care package? You never let me know what you thought of the extras I put in to take up space in the box. We was hoping some more people would join us here. We got 3 in the room. Okay. It's just a nice night to enjoy a good fire. And there's nothing like a pretty fire in a pretty fire pit sitting in a beautiful memorial garden to make the evening great. One thing about it, this morning for the sunrise, I did with Wendy B and a Reba Dive girl. We did the sunrises from Florida all the way to Arizona this morning, and that was quite an experience to see how the sun rises differently in each time zone. Had a good time doing that this morning. That was fun, except I got cold. Honey, it was only 50 degrees this morning when I came out here to start live streaming for the sunrises. I hope you all can see that beautiful blue colors, maroon colors. I hope that shows up on the video. It looks like some of it is that's coming up out of the chimney, but it's also down in the base of the fire also. But I think it's just too bright a color that the camera's not picking it up. Oh, you see it, Joshua? Okay. It's called Magic Fire. I love this stuff. It comes in a little bag. It's a bag of chemical that makes the fire green, blue, and sometimes brilliant red. Um, but not a bad fire builder. I started that with the cigarette lighter. No fuel, no nothing except for paper and cardboard. Little pine. Uh, no, it's not the wood, honey. It's a bag of what they call magic fire chemical. I get 3 bags of it for $5. And it makes for more than just a fire. It makes something of color and beauty. And I don't know, it seems a lot better and worth the price. Since most of the wood I put in there is, well, all the wood I put in there was free for just going and getting it and picking it up. So, uh, I don't know, $5 for a pretty colorful fire seems like a cheap price to me. Uh, and the reflection off of my neighbor's skirting is pretty too. And of course, then there's the beauty of the lights in the garden. And if you look over this way, it's all lit up this direction too. And then there's, of course, there's the gazebo that's all lit up. And life should be always be this simple. I don't have a lot of stress or anything, and well, I didn't have a lot of stress and stuff in my life. I've recently discovered that I have something wrong in my brain. I've just overloaded it. I've tried to stuff it with so much knowledge and understanding over all these years. They used to call me a knowledge sponge. I wanted to learn everything. I was curious. And I learned lots of wonderful lessons from a wonderful array of great human beings. There was the museum caretaker at the History Museum. Then there was the zookeeper at Swope Park Zoo. I learned from the factory workers how to bottle soda, how to run a machine. I learned from my grandfather how to cook. I learned from my grandmother how to garden. I learned lessons from those that were older than me. I think a big problem today is Children don't sit at the feet of their grandparents and really listen to their stories. You know, I remember it's like I had lived in the Depression because I listened to all the stories of the people who were uh, in the Depression era. My dad, he told how for over a year they lived on nothing but turnips, fried turnip, mashed turnip, raw turnips. That's all they had during that time. And after that, my dad never cleaned his plate. Oh, he'd eat everything of purpose on the plate, but he always left a pinch of a slice of bread, just the corner crust of a slice of bread. What it just I asked him one time, I said, Daddy, why don't you eat that last bite of bread? Why do you leave it on your plate? He says, because I can. Think about that one a minute. Because I can. How much food do we send down the garbage disposal or put out in the trash? If you had no food, that sack of trash might look awful appetizing. We are such a country of waste. We waste our time looking at our phones. We waste our time sitting in front of television. Oh, I'm guilty. I spend probably 20 hours a day in front of this laptop. However, a lot of times I don't consider it a waste of time because I'm gaining knowledge. I'm looking something up or I'm listening to this happening and that happening. I'm finding out just how horribly bad my world is. It's in real bad shape. But I've also found the good. Hey, there's a lot of good people out there that are working and planning that when the worst comes, they'll be able to survive. I want to live long enough. I've always wanted to live now since I died and came back. I've wanted to live to see how the world evolves when all of this goes down. How does the world recover when it loses 50% of its population? What does the world do? What do the people in the world cling to? What do they do when there's a total, be it a natural EMP or a man made EMP, takes out all electrical power? Let's say all electrical power worldwide, if it's a natural EMP. What do people do? Have they forgotten? They have thrown all those lessons that they could have learned at the feet of their grandparents, and they have squandered them away. Well, that's what happens. We have squandered the important things. You know the old thing about stop and smell the roses? Well, we don't take enough time to sit and watch the fire, admire the lights, or look up at the moon and realize that it passes over our heads every night, just as the sun rose this morning and set this evening. But how many people actually took the time today to admire a once in a lifetime sunset? It will never be the same sunset twice because God makes everything unique. So each sunrise should be dreamed upon, thought upon. But we're too busy hustling and bustling. Got to get to work on time. Got to get home. Got to pick the kids up from school. Got to make dinner. We got to do the laundry. We got to clean the house. Gas up the car. You know, back in my grandfather's day, life was much simpler. Yeah, you had chores. You had to milk the cow. You still had to fix breakfast and eat. But breakfast was eaten around the table with everybody. I mean, between me, my brother, and my other 7 cousins, the table was always full. And the food was on the table, not something you dipped up at the stove or took out of a microwave. It's something that you spent time together in the kitchen cooking or making or setting the table. We spent time as a family. Well, there is no family anymore. People go out to dinner at a nice restaurant and they communicate with each other through text across the table. I pray, I may be wrong and I could be condemned for this, but I pray for that EMP, that point in time when we can go back immediately to a simpler life. I know for many it was going to be absolutely total turmoil. There's going to be so many people in social media withdrawals. Uh, People haven't prepared. They're too busy with their hustling and their bustling to think that something like that could actually happen. Well, I never thought that my country would attempt to force me to take a poisonous injection, but they tried and they succeeded with millions in doing so. Of course, I can remember when there was a time that if I wanted to call my neighbor, I had to pick up the tin can and tighten the string that led from her bedroom door to my bedroom door so we could talk. But we didn't have walkie talkies or cell phones or Blackberries or laptops or computers. My telephone had, I had to, it would ring for everybody in the county. Okay. I just had to know what my ring was, which was too long and one short. If it rang too long and one short, that call was for me. If it rang too long and short and a long, well, that call was for somebody else on the line. Today, we can talk to somebody clear around the world, and they'll sound like they're sitting in your front lobby. Things have changed. The age of Star Trek is coming to pass. Will did Roddenberry really see a world after peace on Earth? Or is that just fiction? I don't know. He thought about the communicator, that button that you got in your ear that you communicate with people today. He had it on a shirt, but he thought of it. Did, you know, he thought about the different that we may not be the only ones in this universe. Scientifically thinking, the universe is very, very large, and the energy for life force of the creator is unlimited. Why couldn't there be other people, other species? Sometimes I look at a bug and I wonder what he thinks. I know from science he has a brain. Does he think? People admire my dog. I mean, baby behaves better than, well, many people. Know that. There's no fence here, there's no leash. How did I train her like that? Because I did not look at her as a dog. I looked at her as a, yeah, I'm talking about you. I looked at her as a mute child. And I raised her with the premise of having cognitive thought, just as a mute child would have. And I have one of the best trained, well behaved animals most people have ever seen because I gave her the premise that she could learn and understand my language, just as I have begun to learn and understand hers. Just like a mute child, she can't tell me what she wants, but she can whine and look at the dog food bag or whine and look up at the sink, and she's telling me that she wants food and water. She can go to the door and jump up on the back of my chair, practically push me out of the chair if she's really got to go bad to go outside. Life is simple. It's only as hectic as we choose to make it. Yeah, in today's world, you got to earn a living. You don't get to go out in a chicken house and wring a rooster's neck, have chicken and dumplings for Sunday dinner. You don't get to feed and raise a calf and then take it and butcher it and fill the freezer with meat or a hog. We don't do that. We depend on the chemically treated, artificially colored meats that we find. Sometimes they're not even made of meat now. We find in the grocery stores. I was asking Ray earlier on his panel if he was prepared. Prepared for what? Are you prepared to instantaneously, in a blink of an eye, find yourself living in the 1800s before the invention of the incandescent light bulb and electrical power and the gasoline engine? What if, just for a moment, you ponder, what if you were suddenly thrust into the 1800s with only that in supply that the 1800s offered? Unless, like me, you stockpiled it away when it was available. So I don't have to live quite as primitive as my forefathers. But I did get the chance to experience in my lifetime an outhouse, having to pump water from a water pump because you didn't have any running water in the house, or taking a bath in a stock tank with all your other cousins because you could only afford to boil and heat up the water once. I knew that life. Many of you do not know what life is without a flushing toilet unless you've been to a fair and had to use a blue box or a gray box. You don't know what it's like not to be able to go over and turn on the faucet and have the water come out. As we were talking, most folks don't know how to pick wild greens or wild edibles. They never learned. No one ever took them out and showed them what they were, made them familiar with it. My biggest fear is about to come to pass. Okay? I have been diagnosed with a disease that is going to cause dementia. The very thought of losing what I have in my head for generations to come scares me. I don't have no a way to pass on all this knowledge. It's 68 years of working and striving to become smarter and smarter and smarter and more adapt on the real world things. Oh no, I can't code. I don't know anything about computer chips and things like that, but I can't eat a computer chip. It won't clothe me. It won't take care of my medical needs. So why was it important that I learn it? But learning how to steep dandelion flower to make a tea was important. Learning how to crack and heat and make flour from acorns that fall from the thousands of oak trees here in this country, that was going to do me good. That was something that, you know, if I learn it and I learn it and I'm able to teach it to someone else, I taught my children, all of them. We learned survival. We learned how to butcher stock, how to raise stock. We learned uh, how to take care of medical wounds and you know, you're in the middle of the woods and you got to take a dump. What's the best weed to use for toilet paper and what's the one you don't want to use? We learned about things like oatmeal. When you got into poison ivy, you make oatmeal milk and use it. It works a whole lot better that and lye soap. I'll bet most people don't even know that how easy it really is to make lye soap, but because they can go to the store and pick up a bar of soap, why do I need to make lye soap? Well, honey, you ever get yourself into a batch of chiggers? You're going to wish to God you had a bar of lye soap. So, how do you take chamomile? What is chamomile? Well, chamomile is a plant. How do you take chamomile, coconut oil, and wood ash and make lye soap, bug resistant lye soap, okay? Mosquito soap. Now, these are all things that are chalked up in this brain of mine that I'm eventually going to forget. So tonight I place it here as I speak beside the fire, and I hope you're taking notes. I set up the replay. It'll replay once I leave here tonight. Take note that, you know, you need some cast iron skillets, okay? Because when you can't cook on gas or electric and you got to cook on a fire, them aluminum pans that you got in your kitchen that you paid big money for, they aren't going to hold up. So you need to have you some cast iron around. Little things that people don't think about is what would you use to start a fire? Well, if you started cleaning out the lint trap in your dryer and storing it, why, you'd have an abundance of fire starter. Them old candles you get burnt down, you throw it in the trash. You don't stockpile that wax. You know that wax might come in awful handy someday. You don't need to keep junk, but you need to be able to know where to find what you need. How do you find wildlife to hunt? What are the secrets of sitting in a deer stand? What's the secrets? What is the know how? When you get that deer, do you know how to field dress it so that you don't taint the meat when transporting it from the field to your car? Many people don't even know how to gut and clean a fish. There are people out there that don't even know how to fish. The old saying is, you give a man a fish, you feed him for a day. You teach a man to fish, you feed him for a lifetime. But we ain't got time to go to the creek and the river with our family and cast out a cane pole because they may not have a rod and reel. So you got to fish with the very basics: a string, a hook, and a piece of wood. How do you how do you reel it in? How do you take it off the hook? Have you taught your children these things? Have you let them experience what it's like to gut a fish or shoot a deer or kill a rabbit? One thing about it, you don't have to waste bullets on rabbits if you get good with a slingshot. Do you know how to make a slingshot? Do you know how to use one? Okay? You can take a rabbit with a rock. Real easy. At least you're going to eat. Anybody know how to tan that rabbit's hide to keep your feet warm? Well, you got to preserve the brain of that rabbit. That brain of that rabbit and a little water, and you can tan that hide. There's enough brain in any animal to tan its own hide. Many of you probably didn't know that. How am I going to take all this knowledge of all these little simple things that I know and no one else does, or very few do? How am I going to make sure that the generation that survives the onslaught of the apocalypse comes back, becomes prosperous, and survives? It's not that I survive, it's that others do. Yeah, I've stockpiled a lot of stuff, okay? And I know where to acquire a lot more if I ever comes down to it. But what do you do if you're living in a high-rise apartment in New York City? Okay? Let's say it's a studio apartment. You don't have much cabinets and storage to store a year's worth of food or 2 years worth of food or 10 years worth of seeds. Even if you had the seeds, where would you grow them? How would you grow them? So you study hydro and aquaponics, and you you get you a tower garden before end times happen. You get you some freeze dried Patriot foods, and you buy you a dehydrator, and you learn how to use it. Canning, you know, learn how to can, learn how to cold pack, learn how to build a fire. You know how many people would struggle forever to build a fire? I had one young man just out of the army. He'd done 2 years in Afghanistan, and he's going to fix me a steak dinner. And I said, "Well, steaks taste better in a cast iron skillet cooked over an open fire." He said, "Okay." So I handed him three 3-inch logs, a box of pine kindling, and a stack of newspapers. Well, he went out to the fire pit and he laid the 3 logs down on the ground. On top of those 3 logs, he stacked the entire box of kindling, practically. I think he left me 4 or 5 pieces of kindling, but he used the whole box when he put it up there. And then he took the newspaper and he shredded the newspaper up and he laid it across the top of the pine kindling, which lay on top of the logs. And he lit a match. And he couldn't figure out why his fire never started. because he didn't know how to build a fire. He built that fire completely backwards. And that young man was 22 years old. And I just sat there and shook my head. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. So, as my fire starts to dwindle tonight, you know, down here in the Ozarks, folks never had too much. We had a piece of land, a run down shack, and young'uns by the bunch. The only time we saw our neighbor was when we went to town, 'cause folks was working mighty hard to make a living on this here piece of rocky ground. Clothes and food, why, they was a real commodity. And the things that we cared most about, well, them there was family. You see, we only had two heroes, and that was Ma and Pa. In all our troubles, we took it to them, for they knew it all. We never met no stranger. Everyone was welcome in. We didn't treat new folks like guests. We just thought of them as kin. And of the things that was really important, there was really only one. Learn to read the good book and keep the Lord as number one. Treat folks the way you would want them to treat you. A good person is always honest, kind, and true. You see, we enjoyed the simple things in life, like mud when it comes squishing up between your toes. We didn't need to take none of them chemicals and shove them up our nose. We enjoyed the sunshine and the rain, flowers and trees, and every night beside our beds, we take just a little bit of time on our knees. Now, a lot of folks out there would laugh at us and call us hillbillies and think we weren't too smart. But I reckon that someday our way of life will be treasured as an art. Those of you who have watched this evening, do me a favor, share it out with your friends, share it to your family. Maybe something I said might help them someday. You know, that idea of soaking in oatmeal milk when you've been ate up with poison ivy, poison oak, sugars, and scabies might come in handy someday. Sure did for me. To find out that poke, while you still got electricity, do a little research on the plant, especially if you have arthritis. You know, sometimes three pokeberries can be equal to one hydrocodone for certain pain. It can be it, but you got to know that you got to boil poke 3 times. It takes 3 boilings and rinsings to get the acid that makes it taste bitter and upset your stomach and bowels out of the poke. But then when you cook it with a big side of salt pork, it's really good. Now I like to add things to it. You see, I fix poke and I mix a little collard greens and some wild turnip greens, some wild scallion with it, and I'll throw in a little wild lettuce, some dock, and some dandelion. And I'll make a mixture of greens. It's so good. And I always try to get a little bit of turnip in there. So I try to pick wild turnip, wild onion, wild garlic, But y'all don't have any of those things. Perhaps that's why I feel that the Ozarks is going to be the last best hope for humanity. Because many, many folks here have passed this information on from one to another. Sitting on a porch and telling stories has been a pastime here for a long time amongst the locals. So before my fire goes out, I ask that you do a collective prayer with me as we remember those who have gone before and those that gave the ultimate price for our freedom. As we pray this evening, let's keep them in our thoughts, but let's keep their families, those that had to bear the loss. Those men and women have went on. It is those they leave behind that suffer. So remember them this evening as we pray. So before I close this live stream tonight, together, the Lord's Prayer. Our Father, which art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day, Lord, our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those that trespass against us. Lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory forever and ever. Amen. Now I'm going to turn this around, away from the fire for a few minutes, and go back over chat. All right. Warboot. Yeah, I know Warboot, but that ain't what the doctors say, so. Oh, God. Game dev. I'll get worm poop on my hands. Denise. I think I've heard this one before. Love the ones you told. I think on the convoy. I did tell it on the convoy, yes. Okay, wonderful. That's the thing. Can we teach people? Why do we have to be so divided? For instance, woke, that thing. Well, there's some entertainers, male entertainers that came to town to do a drag queen show. That went over in this area like a lead balloon. The whole town is up in arms to ban adult entertainment. Now, had those same men, talented men, had promoted their show as a female impersonation show, I don't think the city would have went up in arms. It's because we want to think we all look down at things just one way. The convoy of honor. I'll not forget going into the meeting with the city and them telling me that I got to get a permit for a convoy and that I needed to acquire a $6 million event insurance policy and that I was going to need to pay overtime to one entire shift of officers that would need to work the convoy. And I looked over and I said, by the way, Mayor, what's a convoy? He says, well, it's all them big trucks going nose to nose and with their trailers and all that. All. I said, really? He said, well, yeah, like the movie Convoy. So I turned around to Mr. Bob Nichols, who's sitting next to me, and I said, Bob, would you be so kind as to ask Google the meaning of convoy? He brought it up and began to read. A convoy is any three vehicles traveling in tandem for protection. I said, would that count to 3 bicycles? So that would be a convoy. So you wouldn't allow a convoy in your town without a permit. It says any 3 vehicles traveling in tandem or in the same direction. So I reckon we have a convoy traveling through 76 Country Boulevard from both directions all day long. Yeah, that's a convoy. But since you see it as something, as the movie Convoy, so will others. So we're not going to convoy around Branson. We're just going to take a stroll. They loved it. Absolutely loved it. I went to the new chief of police and I asked him if he was going to give me any trouble with my convoy of honor in November. And he says, absolutely not, Mona. This town was so thrilled with what you did last year. We want to see it bigger and better this year. It's a good thing because we're coming and we're going to do it again. We're going to have the biggest Patriot reunion has ever been. We got 20,000 seats in the amphitheater and equivalent parking. We have entertainers. We have the entire Freedom Experience Theater here in Branson, which is huge. It was originally built as the Tony Orlando Yellow Ribbon Theater. They thought they was going to bring in gambling to Branson. So they built these theater with huge, huge, huge foyers. So I'm hoping some of my vendors can come out and stage up at the theater on the 9th. Now, I can tell you right now, it's not going to be as cheap as it was last year because last year I only had the top of the mountain parking lot. I had access to one cold water hose and the parking lot lights. That's it. This year, that's not the case. We've even got a beer garden, but you got to keep your beer in the garden. There's no open drinking allowed. No open, even though marijuana is legal in the state of Missouri, there will be no open smoking of the herb. You want to do it, go to your car, go to your tent, go to your camper, but not out where others, like our truck drivers, who can, if they even was to get a contact high, could lose their CDL license. And we're not doing that to them. And the food is not going to be Soup Mama. Soup Mama is coming to be part of the celebration. The girls from the People's Movement of Missouri are planning to do the cooking, having coffee and donuts and rolls for early morning munchers and waker uppers to a mid-morning brunch. Now that's all included in the price. We do ask folks to donate some eggs and some bacon and some sausage and some bread, breakfast foods. I am presently in the process of acquiring restaurants to come and serve us evening meals at a discount to those that camp with us, with a portion going to Steve Spurgeon's USA Superheroes 501c3 for PTSD amongst our first responders and our veterans. They all like the idea so far, the ones I've got. You can look forward to Golden Corral with their wonderful home cooking. I spoke with Mr. Granny and Gumbo chef, and they're looking forward to coming out and serving a Cajun night. Ooh, that's going to be good. And then there's I talked to to the Hog House about coming out and serving barbecue and baked beans and tater salad or whatever one night. I'm on the search for somebody to come out and serve us some Asian food. I don't mind some uh, egg rolls and some drop soup and some chow mein one night. And one night we're going to be on our own, basically. We'll have a snack bar, and hopefully we're going to have some food trucks. I've been talking to the food truck people here about coming over and setting up. I got fried pies, okay? I got nitro ice so far. Still working. It's only May, folks. But and I got Game Dev, Game Dev here. He's working on a video for me that I can play at the show at the Freedom Experience Theater on the 9th during our big Hootenanny show. You know how Hootenanny came about? If you don't, I'm gonna tell you real quick. I wanted to have a Patriot rally. Well, in order to have a Patriot rally, the city was going to require that I have permit and insurance. But they didn't have a permit for a hootenanny. So I didn't have a rally. I had a hootenanny. It's all in the way you think. Change the way you think about things that people say or do. Who are they really hurting? We've got so wrapped up in the words that people say that words hurt. I've never known a word to hurt. Of course, I grew up being taught over and told over and over again, especially when my cousins would try to tease me and get me upset with their words, that sticks and stones will break your bones, but words can never hurt you. Let them have their fun. It's just words. You can't. Well, you can, because we got live streamers. Okay. If for some reason you want to come and you can't afford to come, well, maybe you could afford part of it. Maybe if you connected with some other patriots and y'all got together, you could all afford it. Right? But we think that we can only do it by ourselves. Oh, if I can't afford it, I can't go. But wait a minute. I could afford $50. And if my neighbor wants to go and they can afford $50 before long, you got a whole bunch of people going. You're carpooling. You're sharing a tent space because you work together. No, we're too quick to think I'd have to save up money. Oh, I couldn't go. Well, it all depends on how bad you want to get here. Bus, plane, train, walk. If you really wanted to be here. If not, save up money for next year. I hope I'm still here next year. I still have a lot of people's lives I need to touch. A lot of things I need to teach. But to get together with my family again in November, my family lived at Hagerstown. I look at that picture every day of when the drone picture of the flag being unfurled and everyone walking under that beautiful piece of patriotic material, and the coherence that was there, the love each of us had one for another was overwhelming. Just the desiring dream that we could bring once again that beautiful, beautiful unity and family feeling we had at Hagerstown. May not have lasted long, but for a time to remember, we were one in heart, in mind, and in soul. Can we be that again? Down in a holler in Lampe, Missouri, in an amphitheater? Could we reunite the love that all those people had for one to another? For just 9 days and 8 nights, can we once again be family? I think we can. If I didn't think we could, I wouldn't be working so hard to make it such a great experience for everybody. Okay? You know, Denise says, oh, heck, I only leave my house once a month. Well, that's your choice. But I remember all the people that stood on the overpasses. They didn't make it to D.C., they didn't make it to Hagerstown, but they were family. They were armchair convoyers. They were patriots that love our country. There's a big flag waving today of the Missouri People's Movement in Springfield. Still standing on overpasses. Still waving flags. So, whether you're here in person in November or you become an armchair camper, popping in on a live chat now and then, we can still be of one heart, one mind, and one love. So never say never. No, get together. I can tell you this, I need 4 more ladies, preferably, because it's a ladies' cabin. I need 4 more people to step up and stay in an A-frame cabin with me, with a total of 8 people in that cabin. It sleeps 8. It's only a hop, skip, and a jump from the amphitheater. The owner of the property has agreed to lease it to us for $100 a night. If we stay 8 nights, that's $800. But if I get 8 people to stay in the one cabin, do the math. Where can you get a motel room where you can get a hot shower, have morning coffee, have midnight snacks in the refrigerator for $100 for 9 days and 8 nights? People need to contact me either here on Facebook or through the Convoy of Honor Facebook page, and let me know if you would like to join me and the other 3 ladies in the cabin for the week of the Convoy of Honor. Still got to pay the $150 there. And if you got more than, 2 people in your group, it's $25 for each extra person in your group. And that's to cover that morning brunch and that coffee and the trash bags and the dumping of the dumpster, and pay the landlord for the property use, to have power, hot and cold running water, a concession stand, beer garden, parking space, and lighting for the parking spaces. because he don't pay it. You know, he has that bill. He's letting us use the facilities, but he has to cover his costs, and I understand that. Oh, I put it all out there. It's on the Convoy of Honor Facebook page. More to come. I have to get some confirmations from some of our entertainers. I do have to let you know that we are going to have one night of children dance. Yes, sirree. The dancers, the children dancers from Branson are going to come out and perform one evening at Black Oak Mountain Amphitheater. We're looking to have an open mic night where you can get up and sing, tell a poem, a story, or just chat, just get off your chest what's on your mind. It's called an open mic night. You get 5 minutes to do whatever you want to do. Sing, talk, or just stand there silently. I don't care. I believe the Highway 13 band told me last year to get a hold of them that they definitely wanted to be a part of it this year. So I'll be getting a hold of them. They started up in Kimberlin City this month. They play every weekend in the parking lot at the bowling alley. So I'll go by and catch a hold of them and get them locked in for sure. Then I'm going to start making my rounds and making sure that I've got certain entertainers that was with us last year. I do have a very, very dear friend of my brother, JR's. Okay, Rocky. Rocky is a gospel singer, but he played and sang with my brother for many, many years. And my brother wrote a song called Sweet Freedom Land. And I have asked Rocky to come and be at the show and be there in honor of my brother and sing my brother's song. For the first time it will have ever been sung on a stage with an audience. Okay? He sung it on a stage at the Paris Cafe, but I think we had 5 people in the audience, or 10 maybe. So I'm working hard to make sure that there's never a dull moment at the amphitheater or at Black Oak, she'd call it. But the most important part is that y'all be there. I get to physically put my arms around you and let you know that I love you. Simply because you still breathe. Nothing else. So I've done my advertisement for this evening. I see that I'm running into a little over an hour and 8 minutes so far. I have 8 people and only 7 likes. I have 7 people and 7 likes now. Somebody left because I said I'm leaving. So good night, folks. Denise, Joshua, Game Dev, Lori, anybody else? Oh, Warboop. Hello. Uh, hey guys. The fire is going to bed, and so am I. Good night, all.